I can just continue where I
Yes,
stopped.
absolutely. Please continue. Except that the camera is showing. Yeah, that's better. That's
Yeah, I mean, my book slipped a little bit.
okay.
Okay, is that, yeah?
Beautiful.
I got to find a way to keep this book steady.
Right. So let's just backtrack to where we were when you were explaining about the mantra. I think you were working on mantra and explaining how memory works in relation to mantra.
Yeah. Anant, you've muted yourself and you've disappeared. Anant, can you hear me? We've lost you. Oh dear. We've lost Anant.
Okay.
Okay, we're on.
So, yes, so the mantra is one of the important ways of focusing on and remembering the name of God. But the mantra is a gift that one receives from one's spiritual teacher at the time when he or she accepts you as a disciple. So there is a ceremony called the Guru Diksha, and which is the gift of the mantra or the prayer. And as I said, this mantra will have a special name of God, which the teacher thinks is most appropriate to the particular student. And so the student will receive, the teacher whispers this mantra in the ear of the student receives it, memorizes it, it's generally not written down, memorizes it, and then from memory will make the recitation of this mantra a regular and disciplined part of his or her daily prayer. So the mantra is like a triangle in some ways, or the connection, because it's the disciple's connection with the teacher and also with God.
Anant, I wonder if you could share.
Let me just ask one thing for clarification.
Yes.
As someone who spent some time with Hindus, would you agree to the statement that ultimately the purpose of Hindu religion is to remember God and be transformed by that memory? And this is not just an outsider's reading, but this would be a formulation that is internal to the tradition and to its aspirants?
Yes, I would say that there is I think I would answer your question by citing a very beautiful and important verse in the Bhagavad Gita, where the teacher Krishna says in Sanskrit, Yad karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juhosi dadasi, yad tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. So whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever religious discipline you practice, whatever you give to others. So it describes comprehensively all actions. Do it centered on God and for God. Do it centered on God and for God.
Well, that's actually a formulation of intentionality, which is different than memory. Memory.
But you were asking me I thought you were asking me a general
because
question about
my impression is that, I know people in Hinduism who spend hours a day, with their mala beads chanting the name of God, which
Yes.
is right. And this is what you do with the mantra. You chant God's name. So chanting God's name is a form of remembering and seeking God realization. That's a
Yes.
very different that's a different quest from, say, remembering history or remembering the Torah, or even remembering scripture. And that's why
Yes.
the question I'm at is, I'm trying to think within the overall economy of Hinduism, whether the memory of God plays a proportionately higher place than it does in other traditions.
Well, and you described rightly, what a practice of many Hindus, which is what's called japa, or reciting the names of God. But the purpose of that, Alan, and that's why I cited the Bhagavad Gita verses connected with your question. The purpose of that is really, as you put it, to transformation, but transformation through cultivating an unbroken awareness of the divine. So memory is remembering the divine, and the cultivation of memory of the divine by the use of the mantra is the end. It is towards this unbroken centeredness, transformation and centeredness on God. But it also has to be a memory that must be present also when one is acting, not only when one is chanting.
So you're suggesting that
If I can add something to this, as
Yes.
part of this, I've noticed a huge emphasis on remembering God at the time of death. We spoke to our Sikh conversation partner,
Radolhi,
uh,
Radolhi.
Rahuldeep Gill Singh, who said it was less in his perspective, less prominent in Sikhism. But this is a strong emphasis of remembering God at the moment of death as part of the transition. Would you see that as another expression of the same dimension you were just talking about?
Absolutely. Alan, I have written about this. What constitutes a good death in the Hindu tradition. And clearly, I would say that the most prominent feature of a good death in the Hindu tradition is exactly what you just mentioned. The remembrance of God. And this is stated very clearly in various texts, including the Bhagavad Gita. So in practice, I mean, Hindus would do everything that is possible when a loved one is passing away, to create sounds, to recite mantras, to read sacred texts, because of the belief that hearing is perhaps the last of the faculties to cease, all to the end of ensuring the remembrance of God as at the time of departing the body. This is what Hindus do hope for. Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned remembering God in actions.
Yes.
Could you explain what you meant by that, please?
What I meant is, I was, Peter, thanks for asking. I was adding to what Alon had so properly described, which is a practice that many Hindus do as part of spiritual discipline with the aid of a rosary, to recite the names of God in a mantra. So they would do this early morning, during the day, evening, for various lengths of time. And so that, the purpose of it ultimately is to try to cultivate an awareness, an unbroken awareness of divine. So I was saying, and what that, as one grows in that unbroken awareness, one also brings the awareness of God, not only at those moments when one sits to chant the name of God, but in those times also when one is active in the world. So one performs the action remembering God in action is really offering actions to God, performing work for God's sake, as an act of serving the divine.
And in interpersonal relationships and intercommunal relationships?
Yes, Peter. Again, we are asked to recognize God also in every human interaction, because in every human engagement, every human interaction is also an interaction with the divine. So we must bring that memory of the divine also when we encounter others.
And that leads us to the issue of difficult memories, because
Yes.
sometimes there are difficult memories in these encounters with other human beings. What does Hinduism do with difficult memories?
I think it would depend on the particularity of the memory that one has in mind. But I suppose by difficult memory, you are speaking about memories of personal pain or suffering,
Personal or communal?
or communal pain or suffering or hurt, as you said, individually or communally. Now, I think the tradition is realistic, Peter, that such traumatic events of suffering and pain cannot and do not have to be forgotten. You cannot forget, as you might with other memories that are not so significant and life altering. We cannot forget. But I think also that the tradition has a value for what I will describe as the need for healing of memories. And there are various religious techniques or religious methods that are given for trying to help us deal with and to heal such memories.
Can you give us an example or an illustration?
Yes, I can. So I think one of the techniques is, which we share also with many of the traditions of Buddhism, is the tradition of mindfulness. That mindfulness means that when the painful memories which we do not forget, and which have sometimes erupt into our consciousness at unexpected times, which might be triggered by encounters or words, or certain kinds of experiences erupt into our consciousness. And when they erupt into our consciousness, they can certainly become very powerful. They can take us over mentally and emotionally. But if we are mindful, if we learn to cultivate an attitude of mindfulness, in Sanskrit we speak of being the witness, being the sakshi, the attitude of the sakshi. Without negating the memory, we can discern it in a manner and at a time when we don't suppress it, but at the same time, we don't allow it to to um, to dominate us emotionally and mentally in ways that might lead to mental or an emotional suffering. So we have to practice this mindfulness. And what we spoke of earlier as cultivating the memory of God and letting that be the, at the heart of our daily lives and our daily activities is a powerful way of coping with painful memories.
I wondered whether you'd, as I'm listening to you, I'm wondering how much of this can be shared with people from other faiths. And I wondered whether you'd reflect also just generally on how memory can be negative or positive in relationships between religions.
I think, as we do some, even in Elijah dialogues, we talk about practices within our respective traditions. I think that there are some that might be more difficult and not as easily accessible as other practices. So, for example, the one we talked about earlier, which is the mantra and the receiving of the mantra from, the guru, which requires, participation in a ceremony of initiation, requires a certain commitment that it might be difficult for someone who doesn't come from the Hindu tradition. I mean, on the second question, which is, could you say it again, Peter? You were very specific in the second half
Yes.
of that.
Memory can be both a positive and a negative force in
Yes.
relationships, just interfaith relationships. So.
Yes, and certainly, I think I see that as something that is very much ongoing within the Hindu tradition. Particularly, I would say, in contemporary Hindu Muslim relationships in India. These are certainly influenced by the history of Islam coming into India as part of empire building, as part of Islamic colonial enterprise. And the memory of this and the memory of the destruction of Hindu temples as part of this process continues to be a source of pain and resentment in contemporary India. And we see also, efforts
Can you be specific about what you're referring to? Now that
Yes, we see efforts, for example, to reclaim sacred sites in India, reclaim places where, Hindu groups argue that Hindu temples existed and they were destroyed by Muslims, and mosques were built at the sites of these Hindu temples. We have one very well-known and contentious sacred place in northern India, in the city of Ayodhya, where a mosque was actually demolished, and in the plan to build a Hindu temple. So historical memories are certainly very much present and influential in the relationship between Hindus and Muslims in India. And that includes also, the violence that accompanied the formation of the state of Pakistan. The stories of violence, the stories of the atrocities, the stories of loss are transmitted from generation to generation and inform how people see each other. And so I think I would say, there remains this challenge of what I mentioned earlier, as the necessity for the healing of memories. And I think Hindu-Muslim relationships in India is certainly one of the urgent places where memories of the past continue to live and to shape how people see and relate to each other.
So, in addition to the mindfulness which you talked about, does Hinduism have other wisdom that can help with the healing of these memories?
As far as, when we are speaking, Peter, about a more communal or collective experiences, collective memories. And I don't know if the tradition offers any wisdom on how you heal the memories of a community. Personally, I think that communities have to begin to speak to each other about these experiences. I think there is a need for dialogue that centers on the acknowledgement of these memories and the hurt that these memories cause and the lingering pain of these memories, and the willingness to speak of these memories and for each other to say, yes, we hear you, we hear your voice. And at the same time, the tragic outcome when community memories are not healed is that we continue to hold a generation who themselves were not part of the inflicting of the hurt responsible for the past. But the only way I think personally, at least one measure that is necessary, and I can't see how it can be avoided, is that these communities have to talk to each other about the pains that they experience as part of this healing process. It's like, we saw something similar in the effort to heal memories, in South Africa with the Truth Commission. The mere fact that people came and talked to each other and listened and acknowledged the pain of the other went a long way as part of a healing of the nation.
Alon, you need to unmute.
Is this specifically Hindu wisdom, or is it just good general human wisdom that you're offering here?
I think, Alon, I would say it's good general human wisdom that we have learned. Peter, go ahead. Sorry,
Peter. Do you have other questions?
No, your final question. You've been asking all of our interviews.
Yeah. So some good textual references, Gita or otherwise, about the importance of memory. Maybe we should do it on the threefold structure of scripture, guru, and God. So we have a reading or more than that for each. That would be helpful for us to share with the students and to incorporate.
Okay. Guru,
If you want to think about it and email us later, that's also good.
that will be good. Yeah, Guru, God, and what was the third one you said?
Well, you said scripture, but maybe
Scripture. Okay, sorry. Scripture, God, scripture, and teacher. Yes. Okay.
and then
Well,
we can.
Let me give some thought to that. I would want to make sure I select something that would be really useful for the students. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
This has
Okay.
been a wonderful, beautiful, and enriching conversation. I thank you as always.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to do it. Sorry it took some time to schedule, Alan.
Here we are.
It's been this semester is really challenging, but I'll do my best.